Have you ever wondered what series of events led to the most devastating conflict in human history, World War II? Our tale begins in the aftermath of the First World War. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in June 1919, ended the war, but left the world in a precarious balance. Germany, perceived as the aggressor, was saddled with harsh terms. The treaty demanded substantial territorial losses, military restrictions, and hefty reparations that left the German economy in shambles. The German people, burdened with blame and financial hardships, sought a way out of their despair. Enter Adolf Hitler and the National Socialist German Workers' Party, commonly known as the Nazi Party. Hitler, a charismatic and persuasive speaker, promised the German people a return to greatness, an escape from the humiliation of the Treaty of Versailles. By 1933, Hitler was Chancellor of Germany, and quickly consolidated power, transforming the democratic Weimar Republic into a totalitarian Nazi regime. Hitler began to rebuild the military, violating the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, but the world largely turned a blind eye. The Nazi Party's aggressive foreign policy and expansionist ideology became apparent with the annexation of Austria in 1938 and the subsequent occupation of Czechoslovakia. However, the real spark that ignited the inferno of World War II was the invasion of Poland. On the 1st of September 1939, without a declaration of war, Germany launched an attack on Poland. Britain and France, having guaranteed Poland's sovereignty, declared war on Germany 2 days later. This invasion was not just a military conquest, but a testing ground for Hitler's Blitzkrieg, or lightning war tactics, which focused on rapid, concentrated attacks intended to surprise and overwhelm the enemy. Poland's fate was sealed in less than a month, its defenses unable to withstand Germany's military might. And so, with the invasion of Poland in September 1939, the fuse was lit on the powder keg that was to become World War II. The world watched in shock as Germany, under Hitler's leadership, began its rapid expansion across Europe. The year was 1940, and the French were the first to feel the full force of Germany's military might. Within 6 weeks, the seemingly indomitable French army collapsed, and France was forced to sign an armistice. Paris, the city of love and freedom, had fallen to the Nazis. Across the English Channel, the United Kingdom steeled itself for the inevitable onslaught. The Battle of Britain had begun. The Royal Air Force, vastly outnumbered but not outmatched, took to the skies to defend their homeland. The British pilots fought valiantly, their resolve echoing Winston Churchill's words, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." As the aerial battles raged, Germany unleashed a new terror upon Britain, the Blitz. For over 50 nights, London and other major cities were subjected to relentless bombing. The objective was to demoralize the British people and force an early surrender. But the British spirit proved unyielding. Sheltering in underground stations and singing songs to keep their spirits up, they carried on, embodying the nation's motto, "Keep calm and carry on." Meanwhile, the war was expanding beyond the borders of Europe. In North Africa, British and Italian forces clashed in the scorching desert sands, and in the east, Hitler made a fatal strategic error. Breaking the non-aggression pact he had signed with Stalin, he launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. The Eastern Front opened, and what would become the deadliest theater of the war was set in motion. Despite facing resistance, Hitler's war machine seemed unstoppable, but as we'll see, the tide was about to turn. The next chapter would see new alliances formed, and the course of the war would begin to shift. 1942 marked a significant turning point in World War II. But what caused this shift in momentum? The Battle of Stalingrad is often considered the first major shift in the tides of the war. This grueling confrontation between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany took place from the summer of 1942 to the winter of 1943. It was a battle marked by its ferocity and the sheer determination of the Russian soldiers and civilians. The Soviet Union, under the leadership of Joseph Stalin, was determined to defend the city that bore his name. After months of fierce fighting, the German Sixth Army was encircled and ultimately surrendered. This marked the first major defeat of Hitler's armies on land and significantly weakened the German Eastern Front. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the Battle of Midway was unfolding. In June of 1942, the United States launched an attack against the Japanese naval fleet near the Midway Atoll. This decisive battle was fought predominantly from the air, with aircraft carriers playing a dominant role. The United States, leveraging the power of code breaking, was able to anticipate and counter the Japanese attack. This resulted in a significant defeat for the Japanese and marked a turning point in the Pacific War. During this time, the United States had also officially entered the war. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, the United States declared war on Japan and subsequently Germany and Italy. This brought a significant increase in resources and manpower to the Allies' side, further shifting the balance of power. With these significant defeats, the Axis powers' advance was finally halted, setting the stage for the Allies' counteroffensive. But the war was far from over, and the tide had only just begun to turn. From 1943 onwards, the Allies began to push back against the Axis powers, but how did they manage to turn the tide of war? The answer lies in a series of pivotal events that started with the D-Day invasion. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched the largest amphibious invasion in history on the beaches of Normandy, France. This marked a significant turning point as it paved the way for the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi Germany's control. Following the successful invasion, the Allies advanced across France, liberating Paris in August that same year. This was a major blow to the Axis powers as it marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany's dominance in Europe. While the Allies were making strides in Europe, the Pacific theater was witnessing its own turning points. The fall of Berlin in May 1945 signaled the end of the war in Europe, but the Pacific War raged on. The Allies, led by the United States, decided to use a new, terrifying weapon to bring about the end of the war: atomic bombs. In August 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The devastation was immense and the impact was immediate. Japan, faced with the unprecedented destruction and the prospect of further atomic attacks, surrendered. The use of atomic bombs marked a new era in warfare, one that brought with it the potential for unimaginable destruction. It was a sobering conclusion to a war that had already seen so much death and devastation. And so, on September 2, 1945, with the formal surrender of Japan aboard the USS Missouri, World War II came to an end. The Allies had triumphed, but the cost of victory was high. The world had changed irrevocably, and the echoes of this global conflict would resonate for decades to come. The end of World War II marked a new beginning for the world. But what was the cost of this devastating conflict? In the wake of the war, the world was left scarred, both physically and emotionally. An estimated 70 to 85 million people had lost their lives, a staggering figure that accounted for approximately 3 to 4% of the world's population at that time. The human cost was immeasurable, with families torn apart and entire communities decimated. Among the most horrific atrocities was the Holocaust, a systematic genocide orchestrated by Nazi Germany that claimed the lives of 6 million Jews. This mass extermination, fueled by hatred and discrimination, stands as one of the darkest chapters in human history, serving as a poignant reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink. In an effort to prevent such atrocities in the future, the United Nations was established in October 1945. This international organization aimed at fostering peace and cooperation among nations, a beacon of hope rising from the ashes of a war-torn world. However, even as the world sought to heal, new tensions began to surface. The Cold War, characterized by political and military tension between Western powers, led by the United States, and the Eastern Bloc, led by the Soviet Union, was a direct consequence of the power vacuum left by the fall of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. The legacy of World War II is far-reaching and complex. It reshaped political boundaries and ideologies, led to advances in technology and medicine, and forever changed the way wars are fought. The war also had a profound impact on culture and society, influencing everything from literature and film to human rights and international relations. The aftermath of World War II served as a turning point in global history, marking the beginning of a new world order. The lessons learned from this catastrophic conflict continue to echo through the ages, a stark reminder of the cost of war and the enduring value of peace. World War II forever changed the course of history, leaving a legacy that continues to shape our world today.